G'day, my name's Dave Tyson and I'm a ranger with Parks Victoria. I have a really great job, and the best part is the privilege I have of working with Victoria's Indigenous Aboriginal people, particularly the community elders. They have a real grace and a wisdom and a peace which seems to cross all boundaries. Ways of doing business is about respecting culture and different views. It's all about remembering that we are Indigenous to a culture somewhere in the world ourselves. Most importantly, it's about you reconnecting with your own Aboriginality. I hope you enjoy this presentation. You're just about to meet some very inspiring people who have much wisdom to share.
Our language is Dutterai. My name's Jada Murray Gulpuril. You might know my father, David Gulpuril, yeah? I'm from here too. My father used to bring me up here, all the way from Arnhem Land. He used to fish all these rivers and creeks as well. He knows this country, we know it. So we're going to share with you a little bit of that magic.
When I was a kid, I was fully aware that I had been adopted from birth. So I had white mother, white father, white brother and sister. And also at the time that I was adopted, the family fostered a young Yorta Yorta girl. So I grew up with an Aboriginal sister who I thought was my blood sister. But of course, in time I find out that she's not blood and that I'm of Thursday Island descent. I remember very much growing up in a household that had a really strong sense of social justice and also in an environment that really valued nature and everything that was in it.
I was actually part of the stolen generation, so I was placed with non-Aboriginal people when I was 18 months. So they also had 2 children of their own who became my brother and sister, and they also adopted another young Aboriginal boy who became my brother. So there was the 4 of us. Yeah, we just had I had a great time. Like, we used to go swimming in the dams and the rivers and fishing, and I really wouldn't change my childhood.
Now, Mum she had to bring up 4 of us by herself, and because she's seen that so many children taken away from their families, she didn't want us to be brought up on a mission station. So she finally worked her way over to Swan Hill, and Swan Hill is our tribal area. For a living, we used to round up the rabbits. That was before I even went to school. We used to have our own bundis and spears and, to chase the rabbits. And to have a treat of ice block and licorice, that was fantastic, because we never ever had anything like that before. But we was always out in the bush. And to come into town and to do this, that was great.
I grew up out at Moorbeen. Every time the channels were up and full and running, if you were lucky enough to own a lilo, we used to jump in the channel and sit on the lilo, and then you'd come to the bridges or the walkways that would go over the channel, and you'd quickly flip yourself off it and underneath. And we used to grab our rabbit traps after school, and we'd go out and set a dozen traps each and go home for tea, and then we'd go back out and pick up all the bunnies within the traps and bring them home, and that was basically sustenance for our family. Growing up was on the rabbits, and fishing. Used to love going fishing all the time out at Moorbeen.
I grew up in Hayward, went to school at Hayward, had lots of family there, all went to school together. So because there were so many of us at different age levels, it was a lot easier at school. It was a lot easier to tackle things like racism. My dad was non-Aboriginal, but we spent most of our time with my mum's family, very close with my grandmother, uncles, aunties. It was a big thing when they would come to town or come to the house, and cousins all grew up together as brothers and sisters.
I was born in Victoria, so Dad was a country vet in Gippsland, and we spent a lot of time outdoors as kids. So we moved to country New South Wales, and we had the run of a cattle station over the back fence from where we were living. But I've got a very strong memory of being in the bush, I suppose, as a kid, and enjoying being outside. So
My father, he used to bring me to these places, and he used to fish the rivers here, all the way out as far as the Snowy River, the Murray River. And what I remember about it was the coldness, and sometimes waking up and finding things frozen. And so that was a lot of fun, yeah, and the fish, yeah.
I'm very focused at the moment on my own journey in terms of my own children, my 3 girls, and you know, putting them on the path, I suppose. And I've still got a little bit to learn before I'm ready to really take on searching for my cultural background.
My people are from the Wimmera, the Peppers, so yeah, I didn't even really know that I was Aboriginal, because I wasn't really treated any different. Even at that age, there wasn't a lot of Aboriginal people in the area. So Dougie and I sort of grew up identifying with each other as we got older as being Aboriginal. I was actually lucky enough to find my mother's side of the family first. It took me probably about 5 years to get over that, and then I went in search of my father's side, and because I actually live on my father's country, I sort of identify as a Watchabalek woman.
I didn't know my father until I was about 5 or 6, because he was a shearer. As I grew older, I wanted to know more about his family, so I've traced his side of the family, whereas I more or less traced all my mother's side.
For me, when I grew up, I was told, yeah, you're black and that was it, you know. And it wasn't till a great elder, Uncle Ralph Harradine, and he said, do you need to ask me something? And I said, not that I know of. And he said, well, who's Myrtle? And I said, oh, Myrtle's me grandmother. And he reeled off my grandmother's brothers, because he actually grew up with them and could vouch for their Aboriginality.
on both sides, they're both farming families in Queensland. So I think pineapple farmers in the north, and wheat and sheep, I think, in the western part of the state. And before that, they came from Ireland and Scotland, and the usual sort of Anglo-Celtic sort of background that a lot of people have in Australia. But I did find out that one branch of the family was at Elsie Station in the Territory for quite some time, and I've since found some old photograph albums of them on the station with the the traditional people there, and that's interested me a lot. I'm trying to find out a bit more about that.
With our 14 applicable ancestors that were identified in our native title claim, it sort of made us realise how much we have, but also how much we have lost and how many people we've lost. I mean, it's good to get native title, and it's good that the things that we did learn, but it was sad to learn that we had lost, how much we had lost.
We just finished doing the Welcome to Country here, and my grandfather's great-grandmother's country, Duraroa. So we understood all those things about who we are and where we come from and how we identify with each other in different areas. And so we were very lucky to be able to go back through the records and learn about where we come from. Yeah.
Sometimes when you just listen to the land and what's around you, sometimes the old people do speak to you. I was actually out on patrol one time, and I was walking up the track, and I sort of heard these voices, and like there was sort of children's laughter and sort of voices. And anyway, I thought, oh, well, you know, I'd probably meet someone as I was coming either down from the art side or coming from the falls themselves. Then I sort of sat down on the rock there, and it was only until then that I realised that the old people were actually sort of, you know, perhaps gathered around me, and I just sort of introduced myself, and you know, and I actually felt quite humble to be in their presence, and I didn't feel afraid or anything, just really peaceful, and I just stayed there for a while and then said my goodbyes. And
Times, I mean, working as an archaeologist, I was often working in places where maybe you're tuned into people in the past, and I had an experience there one morning where I was recording artefacts, and suddenly the bush went completely quiet, and I heard kids playing and laughing, and it lasted probably 40 seconds, and then the bush sort of came back to life again. But it was quite a weird experience, and I knew there was no one else there because I'd gone out that morning on my own.
Whenever I get out of a vehicle, whenever I go and visit a place, I'm subconsciously always thinking, right, whose country am I on? I need to respect that. And there has been a lot of occasions where I've gone to find something, not known where to really look, but something's drawn me to an area and I've found what I'm looking for. I find I have many experiences like that, and I actually actively try to tune in, if you like. It's almost like sort of a ceremony type thing. It's a routine that we go through, or certainly that I go through.
When I was growing up, my mother was telling me that I would get these feelings, but I didn't understand. Around my own area, around Denolical, I wouldn't. But down here, I feel that I am connected to the land down here. I know when I started to work out at Colkine there, I felt I couldn't go onto the land unless I asked for permission. And then once I felt that it was given, I was able to go on to the land, you know, and to protect the sites.
When I go out to the mission, there's a real peacefulness out there from what's occurred over all the years out there. And it's a lot of Gunditjmara people that have had connection to Lake Condah Mission will always say that. I guess that's probably the place that's always in the front of my mind, but I've gone to places along the coast and you look at the heritage, and when you do look at it, you think it just feels like someone's just left, that you've just missed them by a couple of minutes, not 200 years or 2,000 years, that you just feel like someone's just left there. And
to me, Lindsay Island, which is right up on near the South Australian border, that holds a special place within my heart, because I did a lot of work up there as a cultural officer, rehabilitating burial grounds. So there's many times where you'd go down to Melbourne for cultural officers meetings and stuff like that, and you'd come home with a cardboard box which would contain skeletal remains of ancestors, and so you would take them home and repatriate. The feeling from participating in that ceremony is something that you just can't, there's not enough words for it, but it is absolutely, it's peaceful. It's knowing that you've returned ancestors to country, that they can actually rest in peace. I think the experiences I've had, and I've had many experiences while working on the burial grounds, is because it is a burial ground, and it's a place of respect. And so you naturally, you become reverent when you're on these sacred sites. And so because you're paying respect to your ancestors on those sites and you are being reverent, that's when all of a sudden your spirit yourself is open and channeled into your ancestors to hear or see various things. So
we're not alone, you know, in this world here. This land is still alive. Our ancestors are still in it, are still very much a part of it, like we are today. And that story is here, in the trees, in the rocks, in the land. And when we dance, the ancestors, they watch. When we sing or tell stories to the young people, they listen too. They make sure that we're doing it right. Sometimes if we're doing the wrong thing, they'll give us a sign. And then when you walk or when in the water and you're playing with the water flows and it tells us a story. And sometimes you can hear its story. And it's like the wind.
So I have a cultural obligation to respect this country here, to come onto country and let it be known, if you like, whether that's out aloud or subconsciously, that I'm here to look after Jarrah country. You then tap into those feelings and that connectedness, and it becomes very, very strong. And for those who go back and stand on the same ground that their forebears have, or their ancestors have stood, is super powerful. I think for non-Indigenous people, it's no different. Non-Indigenous people will hop on a plane and fly to wherever their ancestors come from with a full understanding that they're going there to retrace their heritage. And that's the feeling. They save their money, they get their passport, they go through all this effort just to go back and stand on that land where they know their ancestors have been.
I know what helped me have more of a connection with the land as well. It was talking to my elders and going out with my elders. Yeah, if you can sort of just go out in the bush and really get that feeling. I know when I was working for Brambuck here, and I used to take tours, and it mainly was school groups. And I used to get them to, if it was a nice day like today, actually just lie down on the ground, like on their backs, and we all used to do it, and close their eyes and like just feel the earth, and we'd just be silent for 1 minute. And then afterward I'd ask them, you know, what did you hear? What did you smell? What did you know, and getting all those senses going for the bush and what's around them. So I think, you know, just, yeah, doing things like that.
I guess everybody has it. It's about embracing it.
I think that a lot of non-Indigenous people, they have it, but don't express it.
Yes. If you pardon me, but the white people just came in and, you know, ploughed it all in, whereas the Aboriginal people didn't look at it that way. They looked at the bush and they could see that there was food, shelter, you know, and everything was living. And that's how my mother taught me. I think it all comes down to respect the land. This is what we was taught. We have to respect the land to live off it.
I know of many farmers who are very respectful of the land, yet they'll plough and they'll, you know, sow their crop for wheat and all that sort of stuff. But yet, when you hear them talk around the campfire and the experiences they've had on land, to hear those experiences, you kind of think, yeah, you know, you're in tune.
I know, having worked with farmers, for example, again, who are handing their properties over to become national park, I spent a few weeks working with them, capturing their knowledge about country, and it was quite obvious in that case, as an example, that those people were very sad to leave, but they had a deep knowledge about that country, which came from only 3 or 4 generations, which is no comparison to the Indigenous connection, but it was a very, for them it was a very emotional connection. It wasn't just a farming connection.
Career positions in PV, and just recently having your positions for traditional owners. Here in the Grampians we have an advisory group where the RAP applicants can sit around, and that's an inroad for them to have a say of what's happening within the park.
But I think it's the partnership now between the community and the rangers has made a great difference.
Just last financial year we just completed putting our staff through cross-cultural training, and we had various elders from the native title claims and the TOs within those areas actually come and speak to the staff.
Did we teach you anything?
I think I'm beyond being taught, but
With the others?
no, with the others.
No, I really enjoyed it. I wasn't out there long enough, and I'm only just too glad, you know, that I'm there to help them.
I think that the benefit for the Indigenous communities through the IPA projects and caring for country and working on country has been enormous. It's created employment for people, but it's also given people that well-being and that connectedness to country, and that's what, you know, that's what we all need, not just Aboriginal people. We all need to be connected to our country. The benefits to health, to well-being, to spirituality is just overwhelming.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the rollout of employment and training, you know, employing Aboriginal people into parks is very important, you know, particularly when those individuals are from that area. You know, that's a real bonus. Being role models themselves for the other younger people coming up, that's important to us as well, yeah.
NAIDOC Week is one of the biggest weeks on the Indigenous calendar for the year. It's the week that we party. Reconciliation Week is the week that we party with non-Indigenous Australia. You know, in those 2 weeks of the year we get an opportunity to really re-educate a lot of people, and I've seen attitudes change over the space of a week purely through experiences and people coming together and sharing knowledge and sharing stories.
Key examples for me are from the Grampians area. We've, in the last 12 months, we established a rock art conservation program in the Grampians, which involved traditional owners and field staff being trained in conservation techniques at rock art sites. It really gave them a sense of connection with the old people and a sense of pride that they'd actually been directly involved in caring for those places. And that rubbed off on the PV staff as well. There was that sense of having done something quite significant. Sometimes too often think that we need to work with communities only on the physical protection of cultural sites, but really we're working in cultural landscapes, and I think the involvement of traditional owners in the koala management program at Mount Eccles, for example, is a good example of people actually working together to try and manage a biodiversity issue in a park. I think working together well looks like a number of things. For me, that the main thing would be that we're all understanding that there's no end point in this relationship. It's something that's going to go on forever. It's a bit like park management. There's no point where you say this park is now managed. I think if we accept that this relationship between Parks Victoria and Aboriginal people is going to continue to grow and change over time, then we're probably accepting a fundamental part of working together, which is that we're accepting that we will have maybe differences of opinion, but we also will find points of connection.
I guess the first thing you need is respect for each other. I look at it as that's probably one of the most important things about working together, is to have that respect for, you know, for both parties, and It's the thing of trust too, as well. That, you know, and just, you know, being open with each other.
No, it's all about communication, you know, and learning from each other.
To be able to have community and traditional custodians and us working together, it's just fantastic. There are a lot of elders out there who have got a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, and to be able to incorporate those ideas into our mainstream ideas just gives you so much benefits to be able to pick from.
So working well together, it's being at that same level, being resourced the same and being equal partners.
You know, when you're working really, really well together, we're just one mob. It's like a feeling of being one mob.
I think if we give ourselves time to think about why we're asking the question and understand the real reason, which is obviously about caring for national parks fundamentally, then we can relax a bit into that conversation. I think that's the key.
For me, the main thing when I'm working with Indigenous communities is if I was to leave tomorrow, those aunties and uncles and the other community members, they're going to be there. They're in for the long run. Consider that things might take 2 or 3 years for the best outcome, for an ideal outcome, and not just a tick in the box.
Let's do it on community timelines. Community need to be able to say, well, we agree with that, but we've got this, and this to deal with to get to there. And so we need to actually work more on community timeline. And I guess that, you know, it's the same with funding for various programs. You know, we've got to have it spent within the financial year. It'd be great if we could actually say, okay, well, this is the funding for this project, and we understand that this project's going to take more than 18 months to deliver.
We listen with our corporate ears sometimes, and, you know, it's all very well to go and talk to Aboriginal people, but then we go back and have our own interpretations on what they've said.
Well, I've been involved with native title for that long, and solicitors came in and I told them, I said, don't talk above or when you speak to the elders. I said, that way we can understand you better. And as I said, I'd rather face to face with the person instead of a piece of paper.
If you've got a good, strong community, and there's your Aboriginal community, there's your non-Aboriginal community, if we can get them together to focus on caring for country, we're not going to have just the benefits for ourselves as peoples, but we're going to have the benefits for country. We need to be involved at that top level. We need to, not just to be called in because there's a cultural heritage issue or there's a native title issue. I think we've come to the stage now is that we're partners. And the next step we need to do, and we need to take and embrace, is this joint partnership of national parks.
Things that we need to do to stay connected to country means changing some laws. We want to work with you so that you can help us come back to country, so we can be here to look after this land as well. You know? And that's important.
I think working towards a perfect world is education. If we can sort of start educating our kids when they're really, young, and hopefully, they'll take on those values and strive towards a perfect world.
I think it would be for the future generation to come, because we're here now to pave the way for our, well, it would have to be my grandchildren, so that they could have a better life and a better understanding of what I've been doing all these years.
To be able to keep this so that the city doesn't come here, so that we've actually got a place that is within, I guess, its most pristine original state, so that our young ones can come to a place like this and can learn of culture, can, without any repercussions in regards to going to harvest a didgeridoo or to make a boomerang or something like that. That's what I'd like to be able to still see here for the future generations, you know, especially for my children and their children, to be able to still have that here and to be able to still pass on culture. Perfect world.
For Parks Victoria to go down the path of co-management, joint management, we've unlocked the gate, and I think we're just starting to open it. But I really do think in an ideal world, we will look at the last 270 odd years and reconcile that and hand back the land and manage it in a way that it's meant to be managed. Yep.
The joint management is really important to me. I think that's the start. That's the perfect world. Sitting at the table as equal partners, both resourced. We have a special interest in this land. We'll always have a special interest in this land. We need to be sitting at the table. We're not just another stakeholder. We are the traditional owners of this country and have a connection to this country that goes back to dream time. So sitting at the table as equal partners is where we should be within the next 5 years.
Perfect world for Aboriginal people is working on our country, being able to bury our dead on country, you know, to bring them back to where they belong. When we work and when we live and our lifestyle and where we die and where we end up buried in the ground, all these things are important. And economically, Aboriginal people have to benefit because this country is our natural and cultural resource. It's important because we need to be able to control our future. You know, we need to control where we're going, where our children are going. You know, we need to be connected to country in those ways as well as economically. Yeah.